everybody, and welcome to Season 3 of Flipping the Bird. My name is Ryder Marin. I am the sports editor here at the Paisano, and I would like to welcome everybody back to another fantastic season of UTSA Sports. If everybody else would like to introduce themselves, Ryan, go ahead.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Ryan Garza. I'm the editor-in-chief here at the Paisano. This is my third season of Flipping the Bird now, so excited to be back.
I'm Julia. I'm the magazine editor. This is my second season of Flipping the Bird. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
And I am Eddie Sanchez, a new member to the Paisano, and I am currently a staff writer.
My name is Dalton Hartman. I'm the assistant magazine editor here. I'm also a sports writer for our section, and this is my second year at the Paisano.
All right, so we got a lot of UTSA sports to talk about here, so let's get right into it. First up, we've got UTSA men's basketball, who on the road last weekend in Miami picked up two crucial road wins against Florida International. What are your thoughts on how things went, and where does this team go from here?
Me? Okay. It's kind of seemed like the UTSA men's team is shaped up. I mean, for the most part, it was like the first half of the season was kind of just hoping that they would get to this point. So I think from where we go from this is just try to improve on the subtle things. I mean, obviously we still lack that defensive presence that we were hoping to get with Jacob Germany. But I mean, overall, I'm really impressed with the team so far, and I really like where they're going in this direction. And I think that this road win means a lot because it's like, I mean, it's just like picking up two wins in a row. I mean, that's a lot, and especially in a section especially in a conference like Conference USA, where like you literally just don't have to be the worst team in your group to make playoffs. I think it doesn't matter how long it takes them to get into their stride as long as they get into it before the end of the season. So.
Yeah, and I think they had no away wins, right? Or is it just one?
They were 0-8 on the road heading into this road trip last weekend.
Yeah, I think if they can keep the same momentum, that they shouldn't be, I wouldn't say in the clear, but they should have a pretty good shot for the tournament this year. Plus, with Keaton and Javon popping off in those two games, I think this is kind of the turning point for the season, or in my opinion, it is. If they can continue that and keep winning at home, then I think that we should have a pretty good shot for the tournament.
Also, does help that they play extremely well at home versus on the road. They're currently 8-1 at home, and 4 out of their next 6 games are going to be in the convo. So that is extremely crucial for making a postseason push for them. And it does seem that they are starting to finally click with one another. They've won 4 out of their last 5, including their 2 road wins for, their first road wins of the season. So that's always good to hit your stride this late in the year, heading into, crucial stretch of games. So that's always good.
Yeah, like Julia said, I think they carry on this momentum and they put on another sweep here at home. And also what Dalton said, like, I think Jacob, after Keaton and Javon leave, I think this is Jacob Germany's team, to be honest. I think he's molding himself into a pretty good, almost 6'11", 7-footer player. And I actually like the way he plays, so looking forward to that. But yeah, I think they take care of business against, was it Florida Atlantic?
Yeah.
AU.
Now, a couple interesting notes for the game from this past weekend. Javon Jackson set the UTSA career record Conference USA record, actually, for career made field goals. And Keaton Wallace climbed up to number 2 on the UTSA all-time scoring list. Now, I think an interesting thing to note here is this always seems to be a bit of a trend with UTSA basketball in that we have a very slow start to the year, and then by mid-season to late season, we tend to kind of round into the form. But then when it comes to the conference tournament play, we have a history of kind of falling flat. Do you guys maybe foresee this happening again, or do you think this team is a little different because of, say, the additions of some of the transfers like Parrish and Alley to lead to a deeper team?
I'll start. I felt like last year me, Ryan, Julia took a trip up to go to the conference tournament. And when we were going up there, I remember we didn't have a whole lot of hope for the team. Like we were talking about how like defensively we were just a mess. We couldn't stop people from scoring, and the only way we could win games was just by outscoring our opponents. I still think that trend still happens quite a bit in our games, but I think that I definitely have a lot more hope coming from this team than I did last year for sure. Because I remember, regardless of how well we were doing and what our standing was in conference, every time I would go to the game and watch the game, I would just think like, this is a mess. Like, what is happening here? But now when I watch the games, it looks a lot more controlled, and it seems like they actually are understanding like when to push their tempos and things like that. So I have a lot more hope for this team, and I think that they could actually make it out of first round, maybe second round. So we'll see.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that our two scoring opportunities were only with Keaton and Javon last season, and our defense was lacking. I harped on Jacob Germany a lot last season for his lack of defense, but I definitely think that he's improved. But I think it's a really good component for us to have Eric Parrish and Cedric Alley and Jordan Ivy Curry on the court as well, because that gives Keaton and Javon a little bit of a rest from having to be the consistent scorers and like carry the team offense. I think that now that we're able to have more alleys of scoring, that it should be a little bit more optimistic for the tournament this year for sure.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, Parrish. I mean, he came off with 16 off the bench and a perfect stat line. Like that dude just could not miss a bucket that night. So I agree. If people like Eric Parrish and company can help Javon and Keaton, I'm pretty sure this team can make a good push late.
I think it just all comes down to matchups as well, because if we do end up making the tournament, I mean, you don't want to play one of those teams that's already steamrolled us and has the blueprint to defeat us. So I think that's also something that like needs to be taken into consideration if they do end up making the tournament, and that'll pretty much dictate how far they could ultimately go as well.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think that this team is rounding into form. It feels like a deeper team. It feels like a team that has the building blocks, especially defensively with Eric Parrish, especially. He was playing great defense off the bench against FIU. If we can get a matchup that maybe favors the 3-point shot, I feel like that is a game that we can win in the conference tournament. Although I'd still have concerns about the teams at the upper reaches of Conference USA. I just don't quite know if we have the level of consistency, especially away from home, that it would take to really go far and maybe even steal this thing.
Yeah, I think it comes down to our defense. That's going to be the make or break. And it was last year too. And I mean, we saw we're out the first round of the tournament, and I think that that's going to be the biggest component.
Yeah. There's just a lot that you have to look at with the team. And I mean, I don't know. We've always been like offensive monsters. It's just this year. I mean, I don't know. The senior year with Keaton and Javon, it's like going to be like a big time. And it's like you got to push for it now, or we probably won't be making the tournament. Or if we do, we'll probably be coming out of 8th seed, just because like that's how our team's been structured for so long. So I don't know. We'll see how they do, but I have a lot of hope for this season in particular.
All right, so now moving on to some less savory topics. UTSA women's basketball fell over the weekend in a weekend sweep to FIU, brought them to 0-12 in conference play, and they have lost 13 straight. Ryan, I want to start with you. What is going wrong with this team?
There's just I don't even know where to begin. Like I feel horrible because I feel like we do have some pretty decent ballers on that squad that, when given the opportunity, can do some good things for the program. But I just genuinely feel like it starts at the top, and I feel like Coach Holt is really hindering the growth of the women's basketball program, and has been for quite some time now. It's tough to watch. It's really tough to watch, and I feel horrible. And year after year, I feel like they have like a good opening game / second game, and then it's just all downhill from there, and they just cannot bounce back. And it's just been the trend year after year.
Julia, you want to go next?
Just being at those games for me, the main thing that I see is just our turnover. Our rates of turnovers are it's so bad. And just like the dumb little turnovers that shouldn't be are consistently happening the entire time. Like if we can't control the ball, then there's no way that we're going to win. I mean, the triple overtime game was exciting and interesting to be at, but at the same time, if we are given those opportunities to capitalize and we don't, I mean, that's par for the course for us, you know?
I mean, I don't have much to say, but I mean, losers of 13 straight, it's plain simple that someone has to be on the hot seat and something has to change like immediately. So that's all I got to say for that.
Yeah, I mean, I would honestly say that I personally don't look at their schedule and see the two teams that they beat and be like, oh yeah, these are good wins. I mean, they beat a D3 school and a D2 school. So it's not like they were even like the big blowout games. One of the schools, the D3 school we played, literally scored 5 points in like 30 minutes of play. So I mean, it's a little hard to say like this was like a good game for us. But I mean, like Julie was saying, I think the big things are turnovers, obviously. And I mean, on top of that, shot selection. Like the games that I've covered when I'm looking at the stat sheets, and you're shooting 18% in the first quarter, and then you're improving to like 30 something, and then you shoot 11% the next quarter. I mean, that's not coming from like you're not taking good shots at that point. There's no way that you're consistently shooting 18 to 11% while taking good shots. So I think obviously that starts at the top. Like if I see a stat card that says that we're shooting 18%, I'm not letting them take the shots that they were taking. So I think that there's a lot that needs to be improved on the team, and I don't really see much hope for this team. And I think playoffs are more or less out of reach at this point. So
I think coming into the season, we looked at this roster, and it was a very young roster. We knew this was going to be a bit of a growing season. I think the issue that I've observed is that there hasn't been much growth during the entire season. We've had maybe one or two players. Vaucheva comes to mind as one that has gotten steadily better and improved and contributed more as the season gone on. But in terms of like the rest of the roster, it's just the same mistakes every game. That's not very many signs of growth there. So I just don't know if Coach Holt is the right person to lead the program moving forward as these players continue to mature, because at this rate, I don't see much growth to capitalize on that potential of being young, being a freshman, being a sophomore, being able to take your game to the next level once you get into that upperclassman reach.
I think it was detrimental for us to lose Michaela Woods last season to that I think it was an ACL injury, and having her have to come back and kind of learn how to play again with the brace and to be conscious of her knee, but also being leaned on to be that top dog for the team. I mean, I don't think that is a good move for us at all. I will say though that Kylie McGuire and Emily Beck have consistently increased their game and have done really well. I think Kylie McGuire had a record-breaking game against FIU for her career. But yeah, I think that we just don't have the tools right now to be a successful team.
All right, so moving on to UTSA volleyball. They got off to a 2-3 start to start the season as of Wednesday afternoon. They are playing Texas State, currently scheduled for today at 7, actually. Julia and Dawn, we'll start with you two because you've at least covered some of volleyball so far. What have you seen out of this team so far?
Julia, if you want to go ahead and start.
Sure. Sorry, they're doing blowing outside of my window. I mean, I've only covered, let's see, I think 2 of the game. 1. I'm pretty hopeful for this team. I mean, I always am. Volleyball was my sport. So I think that we have a lot of young talent coming up, especially on our front line, which is going to be really good with Bianca Jesme, especially her. We have a young setter. But we did lose a significant amount of girls through transfer or graduation that I think offensively is going to be a hit to us a little bit. We have the really interesting ability to have our front row play very well in the back row, at least from what I've seen in the first home game. And I think that's very impressive. Kirby Smith in the back row, even Hunter Coppola, who is, she's super tall. So it's impressive to see a bigger in length player be able to succeed passing in the back row. And I think that's going to be something that we're really going to take advantage of.
Agreed. I think like what Julia was saying, we lost a lot of players this year. We lost our number one server, our highest hit percentage spiker. I think we lost our best digger. So we lost basically the best person at every position for our team. So we lost the best defensive, best offensive, and then the best server. And I think not playing the season last year and giving those girls another year to play with the people who they have watched and try to become more is pretty tragic, especially for that team. But they've done a really impressive job so far. They seem that they've used that extra time that they have to they actually look like a solid team. How I can say no, there's no position on the field from spiker to setter to libero, all of them look like they know how to get the ball to one another, and they're not just I don't know. It seems like the tempo that they're going at is really nice, and I really like the games that they're playing so far. It looks solid and controlled. So.
Mm-hmm. And I think we just have depth in our roster this year, reliable depth. Because the game that I was at, Hannah Lopez is our big outside that just absolutely dominates, and she wasn't even playing, and we still were able to fill her spot and have the rotation change a little bit and still put on an impressive game.
Yeah.
It is a little concerning that we did take UIW to 5 sets, but I think we're a young team. I think that their building blocks, not playing the fall season, really are going to be the foundation that they've made that set the tone for the entire season.
And I don't even think going to the 5-game series that bad, especially this early into the season, because probably the best thing that you can get going into these games is you want to have that experience already under your belt. What it's like to go to set 5, and what it's like to be down 2 and they're at set point and you have to come back. It means a lot to these girls, I bet, for them to have to come back from deficits and to play. Getting a match point and getting a break point are super important in volleyball, and there's something that is basically what determines the game every time. So if you're not able to get those points, and especially if you're not able to consistently do it, especially as early as you can in the season, then I think that you're going to falter a lot when it comes to playoff times and games where you're playing against harder schools, especially the Texas game. What is that? That's only 2 weeks away, a week away, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, Texas volleyball they're very good. So, if we're able to force them to a set 5, and since we've already been there this first time this season, maybe we take the game off them. But, it's going to be, we have a lot of tough components, a lot of tough opponents. So, we're going to have to come together and see. So.
And I think one of the interesting things that I got the chance to talk with Coach Groff before the season, and despite having their season delayed from the fall to the spring, they only really had 10 days of practice time together before the season started. So this is a very young team that had a lot of turnover on it that's really just now starting to get to learn and play together. Kind of speaking to what you're talking about, Julie, I think we have a very deep team. I look at Jesme on the wing. I look at Kirby Smith, Hannah Lopez. We've got a lot of really good spikers that can really generate points for us. Right now, I had the chance to watch the first SMU game a couple of days ago, and there were just a couple periods of time where we just couldn't find a stop. I want to say there was one SMU spiker that had at least 20 kills by the end of the game. I mean, she was almost unstoppable. Jesus. I feel like our defense needs to improve if we're going to have a shot to stay in a lot of those games against the tougher schools out there. But I think that this team is young. It's a team that is just kind of learning how to play together. And I think as the season goes on, you're going to see a lot more improvement from them. 2-3 is not a bad start for this team, considering some stuff, including some COVID complications as well.
Yeah, agreed.
That's what I was going to go for it.
I was just going to say, it always helps to have Coach Groff there. She's been super consistent year after year in making sure that the team is ready to face adversity throughout the season. So I think once conference play kicks off, that's going to be, where where we see what we have for the next few years.
Mm-hmm. And I also spoke to Coach Groff after their season was postponed, and the whole time she had a very positive attitude. She, from what I can tell from talking to her multiple times, she's a go-getter and she's going to push this team to succeed, which is exciting. And if they can take Texas more than 3 sets and push that limit, I will be very, very impressed and optimistic for the rest of the season if they can pull that off, because Texas is an absolute powerhouse in all of college volleyball.
Just to touch on what you said, Ryder, like you said, like all the adversity the team has faced, like a 2-3 start, I mean, it's not bad considering all of that. And it is too early to tell, where this team is at as fresh as they are. So I think, like you said, continuing the season, growing together will help them out.
All right, now moving on, we have another UTSA sport getting ready to start their season. Women's softball is about ready to kick off. They will be taking on Texas State, Lamar, and Houston to open their season. Dalton, I know that you covered a lot of women's softball last season. What are your expectations for this team for this season?
Last year they looked really solid. It's always been weird. One of the things about UTSA sports is that our main sports have always been shaky, but our sports that kind of go under the radar, such as like softball, golf, things like that. Those sports have always been very consistent. And from what I've noticed, softball last year, every game I was going to, it seemed like Madison, Washington was consistently hitting it out of the park. I feel so bad because I forgot all their names already because I haven't covered it in a season. But I just remember going to the games and saying that it seemed like we had full control every year. And I haven't looked at the new faces that we got on the roster, but their last roster was super young that they were coming in with, and they were able to consistently beat their opponent by 5 or 6 points. So I have a lot of hope for this season. Does anybody know how they did in playoffs, or did playoffs ended up getting canceled?
Playoffs got canceled through everything.
I remember not hearing about that. So yeah, I was really upset about that because they looked like a really solid team. But I think that they'll do really well. Texas State was a hard opponent for us last year. I remember, I think we lost the first match and then won by 2 the next time. So they're a strong opponent, but I have a lot of hope for the softball roster. They've always been good.
Team had Celeste Lohman and Riley Grunberg named to the preseason Conference USA All-Conference team. So we at least have a couple people returning from last season that ripped it up last season. So we'll see how that goes. Does anybody else have any thoughts on women's softball?
Ooh. It's a good sport. I like it. So. Oh.
Definitely going to be following that season closely. All right, now moving on. We've got UTSA football to talk about. Coach Jeff Traylor, coming off of his very successful first year at the helm of UTSA, went out and signed the #1 recruiting class in Conference USA this past week. Now, we signed a couple interesting facts. We signed 4 Judson Rockets, including the honorary signing of Bryce Wisdom, who passed away last season after a battle with cancer, the younger brother of Rashad Wisdom. So does anybody have any thoughts on Jeff Traylor's success on the recruiting trail and where this goes for the program? Eddie, we'll start with you.
I believe it's a good start. As long as they build off of last season, with McCormick, I think this team has actually a lot of potential. I think last year was it the second time we made a bowl since a good while, 2016. So I believe Traylor is the answer, and he's on the right road. And I definitely see McCormick getting a boost in production, and I think building around him will just make this team, go in the right direction.
Ryan, we'll go to you.
Yeah, I think Traylor getting the #1 recruiting class in Conference USA is huge. That's like that shows that players are beginning to buy into the system, the triangle of toughness and all that. And people are, going to start looking to us as, a place where they could hopefully win some conference championships in the future and compete against all the other CUSA schools that have been pretty dominant in the past. I think Sincere heading into this is going to be his third season now. Yeah, he's shown that time is not stopping him, and he's just getting better with age. So it's exciting to see him take his game up to a whole nother level each and every year. I know the bowl loss might have been kind of disappointing, but they were missing a ton of starters due to like COVID complications and other reasons. So, and we still gave, Louisiana Lafayette a lot of problems. So I think that all in all, this season was a huge success for Traylor in his first year without any, spring ball, not really getting to work closely with his team throughout most of the year because of COVID. And then, just starting the year off and battling adversity all year long. It was huge. So it was a very nice breath of fresh air for the UTSA program to see them do that well this season.
Sure.
Don, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I one thing I like about Traylor is that I believe last year when he first got here, he was already starting to sign people. So it seems that the last coach we had here at UTSA, we got him because we believe that the personnel that he could bring into the program. And unfortunately, we were left wanting a little more. And I believe that here with Traylor, where he's actually consistently gone out and got us high level personnel that has like shown that they can play on the field and shown that they're actual like that he knows these players on a level that it appears that we've not had a draft class that we've known like before. So I really like that he's going out and getting all these players. I think that they're going to be the key to UTSA's future. I think him coming in as a second-year coach this time, and he's getting more and more personnel that he knows on a personal basis that he's going to be able to do a lot more with. And then Sincere McCormick obviously holding it down in the yards. So I think you should be very optimistic as a UTSA fan this year. So
I think it speaks a lot to Coach Traylor that he was able to recruit such a great signing class, especially having to do virtual recruitments and all of that. And if people are wanting to come to our program based on just one season of what he's done so far and the culture that he has brought, I think that speaks values to him as a person and as a coach. I had something else, but I forgot what I was going to say. You can cut that out. But
I think looking at this class, you've got 16 Roadrunners recruits coming in from the state of Texas, 8 of those from the San Antonio area. Traylor really initially said when we first got him that Texas and especially San Antonio was going to be a prioritization. And I think you're really seeing that in this first class. Looking at who we got Eddie Lee Marburger, quarterback, who, if you look at some of his stats from this season, were video game numbers. I mean, he had 10 touchdowns during his high school playoff quarterfinal in the game. We got the Judson running back from Sincere McCormick's alma mater, Judson, DeAnthony Lewis, coming in, who was very successful in his college career. We invested in the offensive line. The only place that we really didn't address too thoroughly in this recruiting class came from the wide receiver core. We signed Dre Spriggs out of Harlan High School in San Antonio, Texas. So I look at this class, and I think this is a very strong class. Traylor put together a really good class last year when he only had a couple months to get to work after we fired Frank Wilson. So I think that this speaks volumes of the culture, this 2-0 triangle of toughness he's building here. I think that the recruits are looking at and responding to it. I think this bodes very well for the future of not just his ability to take players that he didn't recruit and turn them into studs, into getting guys that he wants. Once Traylor gets his personnel in and you see the level of talent, this was the highest rated recruiting class ever for UTSA. This is their first time being ranked number 1 in Conference USA. I think this bodes very well for the future of the program under his guidance.
Yeah, just like Ryan was saying, I hope it'll make us or make everybody buy into what we got now. This will build a culture hey, you can come here and win. We got the number 1 recruiting class. We got Marcus Davenport in the NFL. McCormick's on his way. His season last year was undeniable, and he's only going to get better. So I believe we got something good cooking here.
Do you all think that Traylor focusing on Texas is going to limit our ability and maybe our success going forward if he's just focusing in one region, especially in San Antonio? Or do y'all think that San Antonio and the surrounding areas have enough talent to fuel a championship program in the future?
I'll start with that. I think that it's the right move to do, to focus local and then build outwards. I think you can look at the last couple of years of some of those other like major, like mid-major programs that kind of went nuclear for a season. You look at Houston under Tom Herman, or you look at UCF under Scott Frost. They focused local. They turned Orlando and Houston into battleground states for them. And then they went outwards from there. I think that Traylor, if he focuses on San Antonio, I do believe that San Antonio has a lot of really good talent here that maybe does get tempted by the Texas Techs and the Texases, but they're not always going to get the playing time there. I think that if you focus in San Antonio and you build a brand and you say, hey, stay home and become a legend here, I think that that's the way for success, for where we can start to compete for Conference USA titles and start to maybe elevate into maybe sniffing a top 25 ranking one day.
I personally think that, I mean, when you look at schools that are coming out with like the states that are having like the highest volume of football players coming out of them, there's like Florida, California, Texas. And then after that, I'm pretty sure the numbers drop off significantly. So, looking at probably the second biggest state for football personnel, I don't think it's a huge deal to just be sole focused here, especially since you're a school based in San Antonio and you're really the only football program in San Antonio that has name recognition. I think that you can draw a lot of people to you that would otherwise go to a school that, something out of our conference or out of the state of Texas, just to get playtime. And I think that if you're just looking at the schools around us, I think we definitely have the biggest magnetism of players. So I think focusing on San Antonio is not a terrible idea. I wonder if it will limit our growth in a certain sense, but for now I have a lot of hope for it. So.
Ryan, Eddie, you guys got anything to add on to that?
Not really. I mean, I think there's no problem in recruiting in Texas. I think Texas is football, so I don't think we'll have a problem there. It's more so of just trying to find and build a way to get a winning culture. That's the problem.
I'm perfectly fine with recruiting mostly Texas. I think Texas produces like some of the best football athletes that you can find in the country. And clearly, we've been able to find some gems already. So if Traylor can keep up what he's doing and keep finding these gems, who knows? The sky is the limit for him. I don't see any issues with recruiting solely Texas. I will say I do think it's a lot better than what Coach Jake Spividal is doing at Texas State with just taking in JUCO transfers and no high school recruits. That's a little ridiculous. That's some questionable recruiting right there. But
that's a strategy.
I love what Traylor's doing here at UTSA. I think it's a bold concept, but I think it could pay off if he finds the right talent.
Yeah, getting to talk with him on National Signing Day, actually, I think I could really get the sense of he's got like an idea in his mind of the kind of players he wants. And I think even with this pandemic, I think he did a really good job of like finding those guys. And I think that those guys that he's bringing in this class, they're going to fight for him every single play. They have the he already stated that they are going to play. They're going to get as many guys in the game as possible. So expect this team coming season. They're going to be running. They are going to be hustling every single down. And we may see some gems step out immediately and contribute right away.
Ooh. Yeah.
All right, then. So moving on, we have women's soccer kicked off their season with a 2-0 victory. This came after some delays due to their first two season openers being canceled due to COVID concerns from the other programs they were slated to play. Ryan, you were there at the game on Thursday. No. Monday. Sunday.
Yeah.
I'm so in control of the situation. So you were there at the game on Sunday. What did you see out there from them?
So honestly, I been covering, or I've watched this soccer team just completely evolve from the moment that I got here on campus. Women's soccer was the first sport that I got to cover. And I must say, Derek Pittman has done a tremendous job getting this program turned around and back on track. I think his first season at the helm of the team, he won like 6 games or something like that. And last year they won 8. And this year, I think they were predicted to finish 3rd in the CUSA West, which is huge because most years we're at the bottom of the standings when it comes to women's soccer. So watching the game on Sunday, you can tell that Pittman has completely changed the attitude around in the women's soccer program. It kind of feels like what Traylor did for the football team. It's like a completely different attitude. You could just feel this like different type of swagger coming from them that you've never like experienced before. And it was just like, it was really, really fun to watch. And it's crazy to just see the growth that program's gone through. They played a phenomenal game. They scored within like the first like 15 minutes of the match starting. And I was like, this is insane. They were playing some really, really good defense. Like A&M Corpus Christi was barely getting any, touches, and they were just doing a real good job of keeping the ball away from the Islanders. And if that little sliver of what I saw is, if they could replicate it throughout the conference games throughout the season, then I can see them making some noise in the conference tournament this year if they get enough wins. But I think the real test is going to come when they play Rice coming up, because that's going to be a real good indicator of how the season is going to go against conference opponents. But the win against A&M Corpus Christi was pretty huge. There's just a lot of good that's coming out of that program right now, and they're headed in the right direction for sure.
Julia, do you have any comments to add on to that?
I mean, I agree with everything Ryan said. I think Coach Pittman has definitely changed the mentality. We've got some tough cookies out there, that's for sure.
Yeah.
The first goal actually was an own goal, so
yeah,
A&M Corpus scored on themselves.
That's right.
Which was kind of funny, but I mean, I think that it's going to be a positive season. I definitely have high hopes for this team. If we can put up a fight against Rice, then that will definitely be an indicator of what our conference slate is going to look like.
I think looking at this team, it almost speaks to almost a complete culture shift within UTSA's sports athletic department as a whole. We got new branding for the women's soccer team. We got new branding for the women's volleyball team. UTSA football has got the triangle of toughness now. There seems to be almost a recommitment to winning and investment into the athletics department program. I think we got the right coaches in place in many of our sports now. I think the job Pittman has done so far over the from when he first got the job to where we are now, I think speaks volumes to his ability as a coach. Looking at the stat sheet, because I didn't get a chance to see the game, I really saw some good signs of how UTSA could apply what they did in this first game against maybe an opponent that could be considered lesser competition, and how they could apply that out to the rest of the season. So I actually do have really high hopes for this team. Ellis Patterson in particular, I'm really excited to see more of, named to the preseason Conference USA team. So I'm excited to see where this team goes.
Yeah, sure.
All right, so that would do it for what we have for UTSA Sports. Now, I wanted to ask you guys, there was a game this weekend, kind of big. I don't know if you guys noticed it. Super Bowl 55 came and went. Kind of hyped up as this generational matchup between the GOAT and the baby GOAT, almost, or the GOAT in waiting. Did not turn out that way. Mahomes was running for his life almost the entire game, and Brady cruised to his 7th Super Bowl, giving him more than any NFL franchise at all in total. So I wanted to get you guys' thoughts. What did you guys think of the game on Sunday night?
I guess I'll go first. I did not see that coming. I know with Mitchell Schwartz being out and Eric Fisher is Pro Bowl lineman, I think 3 of his linemen were out. I did not see it going that bad, where he literally had to run back his entire game just to complete a pass. And his receivers didn't catch it all. And but yeah, I just thought Patrick Mahomes was so great that the injuries and up front wouldn't be that huge of a problem. I mean, he's shown he can do it no matter who he has in front of him. And if you were to tell me that he wouldn't score a touchdown, let alone the only points would come from the kicker, like I'd laugh in your face because they got Pro Bowl receivers, Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. And that's the only thing that surprised me the most. I thought it was going to be a shootout, a 30 plus from the GOAT and Baby GOAT. And I was pretty disappointed, not going to lie.
Ryan, we'll go to you.
Yeah, I think if anything, the Super Bowl showed that offensive line, making sure that you have the best possible players that you can at those positions is huge, because Mahomes nearly ran about 500 yards backwards.
497.
Yeah, that's insane. That is not how you win. You can't win games if your quarterback's scrambling for his life all the time. And I would know because I'm a Ravens fan, and Lamar scrambles for his life every game, it seems like. But yeah, and I was hoping it would be a little more competitive, and it would be kind of, because they're both offensive juggernauts, so you would think that it would be kind of like more of a shootout type game, but it was very disappointing to see the outcome and just see the Buccaneers completely just be dominating and in control the whole game. It's what it feels like. So that was definitely disappointing to see. But I mean, Mahomes has so many more years to look forward to, and I don't think this one loss is going to define his career. I'm sure that he's going to be back sooner or later, and he's going to prove why he's the baby GOAT.
Yeah, I watching the game. I mean, the first quarter was pretty slow, how most Super Bowls start. But then after that first touchdown pass to Gronk, it seemed like the game kind of spiraled really quickly. I mean, I remember watching those plays of Patrick Mahomes running back what seemed to be 40 yards and then throwing a ball that was more or less a dime to his wide receivers, and then they just couldn't pick it up. So I think the game came down to defense, obviously. When you look at the two offensive rosters, I mean, they're just both incredibly stacked at every position. So not having that offensive line for Patrick Mahomes really pretty much lost them the game. I think that another thing that really showed up was Tom Brady's consistency. Whereas when you think about Patrick Mahomes' pass, you think about the left-handed pass, you think about the looking the other way pass. Like, you think about all these amazing plays that he always pulls off. But I think Tom Brady's just get into the pocket, move the chains, stuff he learned from the Patriots. It really showed through. And I think that consistency from Tom Brady definitely showed up today, or showed up in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and then the people that scored, I thought that was hilarious too. Like, Gronk wasn't even on the team last year. He's out of retirement, 2 touchdowns in the Super Bowl. Antonio Brown, all his dilemmas off the field. And then Leonard Fournette coming off of, was it a trade or free agency from the Jaguars?
Cut and then signed into
Yeah, they cut him.
And I just thought that was insulting to injury.
Yeah. I mean, they really showed that they can integrate players well. And I think that definitely comes from, I mean, you kind of took already you can kind of look at it like you just took a decently well-oiled machine and just put aftermarket parts on it. I mean, you take Jameis Winston, put in Tom Brady, put in Gronk as the tight end, throw in Leonard Fournette in there, Antonio Brown. I mean, it kind of turns into a team that's just super stacked offensively and
experienced.
Yeah, true. So,
Julia.
Well, as a Cowboys fan, I'm used to disappointment and sadness. So I feel kind of.
I'm a Vikings fan. I feel the same.
Yeah, I was ready to be upset. I mean, there wasn't a team that I was rooting for over the other. Just from watching the game, I thought it was absolutely ridiculous that Mahomes was scrambling backwards, off balance, practically on the ground already, and was throwing, just beeline straight to his receivers. And I just feel like his receivers couldn't catch a ball. That was the main thing that I saw, that I was like, come on, are you serious? Like, if he's throwing you a pass in the end zone, he's practically on the ground already. Like, that's a little bit ridiculous. But I mean, it was a good game. It did show Brady's consistency as a player. I wasn't surprised at the outcome, but I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see where Mahomes goes from here and how he bounces back next season, attitude-wise, and what he improves on with his skills.
Yeah.
Go for it, Red.
I think that watching the game, kind of adding on to what most of you guys are saying, the line play really stood out. Mahomes had no time, and Brady had a clean pocket. And I think historically what we've seen out of Brady is that when Brady gets a clean pocket, he is going to win games. Like, you need to be able to hit Brady, you need to pressure Brady, and the Chiefs weren't able to do that consistently. Vice versa, the Bucs, who under Todd Bowles' direction are a heavy blitz team, they didn't have to blitz at all on Sunday. They could just send 4 and consistently Shaq Barrett, JPP, Sue, Vita Vea, all those guys were just getting pressure whenever they wanted on Mahomes. And I think that that was really the story of the game. I think that Mahomes, obviously, he wasn't getting help from his receivers. I mean, when Travis Kelce is dropping a 3rd and 10 pass that's right in his hands when there's nobody within 5 yards of him, it's just like one of those moments where you're like, it's probably not meant to be. I think that Andy Reid's clock management at the end of the first half, where he took those 2 timeouts, he gave Brady more time, and then Brady gets a couple questionable PI calls to go his way. They go down, they score that touchdown, they go up 21-6. At that point in the game, I don't think you could say it's over because they have Mahomes, but you can almost kind of get a sense like this doesn't feel like one of those games where Mahomes is just going to flip a switch and all of a sudden it's going to be, 31-21 Kansas City at that point. I think that going forward, the Chiefs will need to add some more depth onto that offensive line, because I think that they learned this run that you're just one bad offensive line injury. And as a reminder here, Eric Fisher got hurt in the 4th quarter of that Bills game, where that game was well in hand at that point. Like, that was just a fluky play, blew his Achilles, and he's done. I think that the Chiefs learned that you're one play like that away from it just all falling down. So I think that this coming offseason, especially with Mahomes getting surgery on that turf toe injury he suffered in the Cleveland game, I think you're going to see Kansas City invest more into the offensive line to maybe build up that depth a little more so they can absorb a loss like that. I think that Mahomes has the heart of a champion. I don't think that this loss is by any means going to destroy him. I think they're going to be right back in the spot next year. And I'll even call it right now. I think it's going to be the Chiefs and the Bucs in the Super Bowl again. I know that that's really hard to do, but Brady makes it look easy, and I just don't see a team in the AFC at this moment unless Baltimore gets a playmaker on the outside or Buffalo can find just that extra gear that I'm not sure they have with who they have. I don't see a team being able to beat the Chiefs in the AFC, and I don't see Brady losing in the AFC right now. So
yeah, I mean, I see them being there again, but there's a lot of notable free agents like Antonio Brown, Shaq Barrett. We don't know where Leonard Fournette's going. So I think they could run it back with Tom, but they might need to also Chris Godwin too. He might want to say, hey, I got a ring. Let me go get paid. And Antonio Brown too is like, he'd probably be like, I got everything fixed. I got a ring. Maybe I can get my money too. So I think Mike Evans is the only one that's going to stay. And he even would want to take a hometown discount too. He said he'd be cool with, sharing as well. But as far as the line, again, it still surprised me. I know they missed so much, but I still thought, at least one touchdown. Like, Ryan, as a Ravens fan, I know you guys lost Ronnie Stanley early and then Marshall Yanda off of retirement. And I thought they still did pretty good with the run game. And the run game with the Chiefs was non-existent the entire game. And they just became one-dimensional. And I believe that's why the Bucs' success took them to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think the power in the offense of the Chiefs has always come from just how explosive they can be. I mean, they can flip the switch on and score 21 points in a quarter. But I mean, it didn't feel like they really established a run game, which was pardoned by that line. And then it felt like the only wide receivers they had was Tyreek and Travis Kelce. I mean, I know they have more, but it felt like all they did was just they ran two corners on either, and then they would switch off, and then the one that didn't have was the one that had man-on-man guard, just like couldn't pick up a pass. So it felt like they got boiled down really quickly to just like what their core, what's scary about them, and then it seems like the Bucs neutralized that really quickly. So I'm surprised at how the game turned out. I definitely was expecting a shootout, but I mean, I don't know. When you looked at how like surgical it seemed by the Buccaneers, it was like, maybe they maybe this game is really that easy. So I don't know.
I mean, I think you can look at Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. I mean, they went for under 30 combined receiving yards, I think. I mean, I don't think Godwin caught a pass, or if he did, it was minimal yardage. It's like, if you look at those two guys and you had told me that they are going to have under 5 catches total for less than 30 yards, I would say there's no way in heck the Bucs can win that game. But they did with all the guys, like Eddie said. They brought in Fournette, they brought in Brown, they brought in Gronk. And those are the guys that scored in this game. I think that speaks volumes, not just to Brady as a player, but Brady's job as a GM. He went out and he found talent. I mean, like, New England Patriots, got rid of Brady, and Brady was complaining about he didn't have anybody to throw to. So he went to Tampa and he brought all of his people in with him. It was almost like a LeBron James situation almost. He went in and he just got his guys, and then went and won a chip.
Yeah, and Bruce Arians was kind of throwing shade to Bill Belichick, saying that, he knows what to do. I let him, have his fun sometimes. I let him manage the game, where he couldn't do that for the past 20 years. So I think that's another reason for their success.
All right, so that brings us to this next topic, talking about Tom Brady. I've seen this kind of floating around the sports sphere all week now. With Tom Brady winning his 7th, it's pretty well established at this point he's the GOAT of football and all that. But is he the GOAT of all GOATs? So by that, is Tom Brady the greatest of all time of the greatest of all times?
He is, plain and simple.
And why is that? What's your reasoning there?
I think 10 trips to the Super Bowl and 7 Super Bowls is enough. I mean, like you said, 7 is more than any franchise has ever even gotten one. So he has more than all franchises, just in a player in his own. I think just to get there once is like, there's players that you see like Dan Marino don't even make it. Some greats like Andre Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald never got one. And getting 7, like, I just think 7 is just hearing 7 is just insane. Like, and he atop Michael Jordan of 6. I know Jordan was 6 or 6, but I think 10, going to 10 is just insane, because there's players who don't even make it to 1. And 10 is just ridiculous. Like, if you think about it, 10 is just insane. And winning 7, I think that solidifies him as a GOAT.
All right, we'll go to Julia next.
I think Tom Brady is the GOAT of all GOATs in football, but I think that, you can't really compare. Everything's different, especially like with individual sports. We talked about this yesterday, and I've seen it on Twitter. People are trying to compare Serena Williams to Tom Brady, but it's a completely different game, and it's a whole different training mentality mindset. You can't really compare team and individual sports. And while we talked about it, how tennis has more opportunities to win big championships like that and football doesn't, I think that, classifying Brady as the GOAT of GOATs in sports in general, you can't really do that, because it's not, there's no comparison. Football's its completely own thing. And then, Tom Brady isn't an Olympic swimmer like Michael Phelps, who has all these Olympic medals. He's not Michael Jordan, So I think, yes, in football, he definitely is. But I think what I've seen in the sports sphere for the arguments, they're trying to say that he's the GOAT of everything. But you can't really classify him as that if he's not winning and playing all these other sports as well. That's my 2 cents.
All right, Ryan.
Julia basically took the words out of my mouth. That's exactly what I was thinking. Like, it's really hard to compare like everything all together. Football, it's definite, yeah. But, there's so many other like outstanding, very well-regarded championship athletes in all these other sports too. Like, it's so tough. It's so tough to pick. Like, it's a lot, but it's, there's a lot of winners out there. I don't know how else to put it. Julia basically summed up what I was thinking, though. So,
I just think the longevity makes him the GOAT. Like 20 years of just like video game numbers, pretty much. Like 20 years of success. Half of it is Super Bowls. The only one you could really compare to him is Jordan, and who else after that? Tiger Woods,
Wayne Gretzky.
Like, I just think the 20 years and then him just going to the NFC 1 year and just saying, move aside Russell Wilson, move aside Drew Brees, move aside Aaron Rodgers. Let me show you how to win a Super Bowl because y'all can't. Like, he literally just went 1 year in the NFC and he won a Super Bowl already after spending 20 years in the AFC. I just think that's insane. Like, he did it on both sides.
Yeah. I mean, I again, Julia said it right. You can't really compare the two sports, but I mean, when you look at Tom Brady and you just look at how consistent it is for him to win a Super Bowl, it's kind of insane. You think about it, you're like, huh. So like every third year, this guy wins a Super Bowl in his career. That's how it works for him. It's like a clock. So I mean, I don't know. It's pretty insane just the amount of trophies he has in his cabinet. And I mean, the only one that comes close, I mean, Jordan, Wayne Gretzky, they all were consistent in their own field. But I feel like football, comparing it to basketball, it's apples to oranges. I mean, basketball is a very skill expressive sport. Same with football. But football, it was shown. I mean, I would say Mahomes is probably a better quarterback than Brady, but he didn't have a better offensive line, so he wasn't able to score. And I mean, if you put Jordan against, one of the people he was playing against back then, it's hard to not say that he was better than them in every category. So I don't know. I think football is definitely a more skill-oriented but more team-oriented sport. So
yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. And like, how can you consider a GOAT when in basketball, you can literally take the ball from one end to the other end and dunk on someone.
Yeah.
And in baseball, you can hit a home run and bring all bases in. And in football, you need literally all 11 for your success. So how can you categorize it?
Yeah, I think really kind of like what you guys are saying, the fascinating thing about this debate is it is an apples to oranges comparison. Even if you were to refine the question down to just team sports, what it takes to be the GOAT isn't even truly defined. Like, we don't have a clear definition of what makes the greatest of all time. Is it the stats? Is it the championships? Is it your societal impact? Because if you look at that, it's kind of hard to top Jordan. Everybody knows the Jumpman logo. You can go to a random country in Africa, and they will be able to recognize the Jordan brand probably. It's hard to quantify what the GOAT is, and all these sports are so different. You can look at, even though, in my opinion at least, it's hard to define the GOAT of baseball, because baseball is so specialized. You can be the greatest pitcher, the greatest hitter. Is it Willie Mays, Nolan Ryan, Barry Bonds with the steroids? That probably not is a good example there. Babe Ruth, Mariano Rivera is the greatest closer ever, but he's such a specialized role. Like, I feel like the GOAT of baseball is so hard to define. And then you look at some of these other sports, it's like, how are you supposed to compare the achievements of Wayne Gretzky to Jordan to Brady to? It's almost impossible, which makes it such a fascinating debate of all these people trying to boil it down to who is the GOAT of GOATs, when it's really hard to determine who is, even in most cases, who's the GOAT of their own sport. I mean, even now, in my opinion, Jordan's the undisputed GOAT of basketball, but that's not everybody's opinion at this point. A lot of people are Team LeBron, and there are even some old school people that say Bill Russell for winning, double-digit championships in 13 seasons with the Celtics. I mean, like, it's a hard question to ask. If you had to, like, hold a gun to my head and make me pick, I would pick Wayne Gretzky just for the statistical dominance over his peers, but that's just me.
Yeah. I guess it's like the era too, like there's some who play in both eras. Like Brady's played in the early 2000s and he's still competing with the evolving sport here in 2020, 2021. Guess we could say that too, how Kobe played in the 90s and also had success in the later 2000s. It's hard. It's complicated, but I guess if you want to categorize it, I guess you could just say how individually players dominate different eras and still keep their success going.
I just think it's so funny that it's even a debate, like, in general. Like, how can you compare sport like that, especially individual to team sports? I'm like, why are people arguing about this on Twitter? Like, this isn't even a debate because it doesn't make any sense.
This is Super Bowl's over now. It's like you gotta talk about something else. Like football leaves such a void in people's time. They're like, what can we talk about now? But I mean, I will say one of the fun things that you can talk about now is, do you take who was limiting the other? Was it Brady or was it Bill Belichick? Because I feel like that's actually a good conversation now, because Brady won a Super Bowl the year after leaving Bill, but I still think that Bill Belichick is still the greatest coach of all time.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Is who made him win?
But I think
go ahead, Eddie. No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say that both have just a huge ego, and That's why, Bill Belichick didn't want to provide Tom Brady with his weapons. And, and it showed losing against Tennessee in the first round last year that there just wasn't enough. And you had to buy into Bill Belichick believing that, hey, a fifth rounder could work. Don't worry about it. A sixth rounder could work. And Tom Brady's looking at the Buccaneers like, oh, they got Mike Evans. They got Chris Godwin. They got these 1,000-yard receivers. Like, if you're not going to look me up anymore, like, I might as well take off. So I don't know how to say that there. You just have to believe Bill Belichick since he's always successful every year. But now I think we could say Tom Brady was more of a successor than Bill Belichick. I still agree with you. Bill Belichick is the GOAT of coaches. Here we are talking about GOATs again. He's the GOAT of coaches for sure. But I think it was more Tom Brady, maybe 60-40.
Yeah.
I think, that was kind of the major question going into the season was it Belichick or was it Brady? Well, we're a year in and we just had, the Patriots miss the playoffs entirely. Granted, they did have a lot of opt-outs, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But Cam Newton threw for under 10 touchdown passes on the season. Patriots offense never really looked like it got going. And Brady went out and he won a Super Bowl with an entirely new team with only really, the only other player he really played with at that point being like Gronk and Antonio Brown for one game. Like,
Yeah.
He did it completely new, and it very much felt like a Patriots team at that point. It was like he took the Patriots culture and then just brought it over to Tampa. So I think at this point, it could be really easy to kind of rush to a judgment and say, oh, it was all Brady. I definitely don't think it was that case because there were definitely at least 2 to 3 Super Bowls in that run that I could lay firmly at the feet of Bill Belichick and his scheme, especially on defense. I look at the Rams game in particular, both Super Bowls actually on that you could probably point to that being, that was a Bill Belichick Super Bowl right there. I want to see what Bill can do with a quarterback. Like, say he goes out and gets Jimmy G this offseason from San Fran or something. What does he do there? Because, he was like that Brady successor, and Bill wanted him over Brady. That seems to be the commonly held, theory out there right now. So if he goes and gets him and the Patriots come back without all the opt-outs, I would be interested to see what Bill does then, because I do think that Bill is probably the greatest coach in NFL history. But after first-year returns, you have to wonder, what is that split? Is it 60-40? Is it 70-30? Is it 75-25? There's just a lot we don't know. And who knows? Maybe Bill comes back and he goes and plays Brady in the Super Bowl next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just don't think Belichick has as much talent as he thinks he has, especially with Brady leaving. I think his talent revolves around Tom Brady. As you said, Cam Newton didn't even throw 10 touchdowns, and he was coming off, I think, surgery, and he had a whole offseason to heal, and I thought he was going to do fairly well. And he did have some games, some moments where he did, but under 10 touchdowns, that's unheard of in the New England offense.
Ryan, Julie, you got anything to add on to that?
I'm good.
All right, so that brings us to our last topic of the session. The NBA is currently planning on holding an all-star game this year in Atlanta, and this is coming out with some very vocal player opposition from LeBron James as well as a couple other established NBA superstars. So is the NBA holding an all-star game, especially given the current situation in the country with the pandemic and the new UK strain of the virus, starting to become the dominant strain here? Is holding an all-star game and exposing these players to more risk a good idea?
Who wants to go?
I can start. I don't think that the All-Star game is like one of those things that's like fun to watch, I guess, for like the first 5 minutes, or like it's like, oh, cool, Team LeBron won, like,
I agree.
Awesome. I understand, but it doesn't mean anything. I don't know if there's any point in doing it. It was a fun thing for the players to all like join up and just like mess with each other for a week and hang out. But it's a times we have right now where it's like we're struggling to like get players on the court and we're struggling to maintain a schedule. I think that this is definitely taking the best players in the entire NBA into one room, and then if they all get sick, nobody has their stars. So I think it's definitely scary. I wouldn't do it because the All-Star game is supposed to be like a fun thing. It's not like there's no point in doing it. I don't really understand it, but whatever.
I agree with that. I just think it's a little bit too risky to even think about playing, especially if you've got all these stars. And even if one gets sick, then all of them will have to be in quarantine. So that'll affect the whole, the whole NBA if you've got all the stars from all the teams. So it's not worth the risk.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think it's stupid, to be honest. Like the Pro Bowl, I don't even like the Pro Bowl either in the NFL. Like, I just think they're both dumb. I guess it's all more for like celebrities getting in on close on the All-Stars. But if they don't even play the game 100%, and they shouldn't play the game 100% because that's just way too much talent. Injuries are going to come out of that. And especially with the pandemic right now, I agree this All-Star should not happen. And I know Kevin Durant had just recently gotten COVID, and all the star players are just too much, and we're barely getting basketball again, and they're not even in a bubble like the Disney bubble that we had last year, which no COVID cases out of that. That was amazing. I would want that again, but I know how depressing that is just to be in Disney World like for 3 or 4 months. But I am a Lakers fan, so we're glad we got a Disney ring there, as people are calling it, Disney ring. But
you got the Mickey Mouse chip.
The Mickey Mouse chip, I'll take it. But we can't. I don't think we go back to that bubble. But if we can't, I don't think the All-Star should be hosted.
I agree.
Yeah, I honestly don't think the game should be played at all. Like, just look at, I know the Pro Bowl is completely different from the NBA All-Star game, but I mean, the Pro Bowl was like, I'm sure nobody really cared at all about it. I think it's definitely something that they should not do this year. Like, it's just wait till people can be back in the arenas at full capacity again. Like, there's no rush for these All-Star games. Just give them the nominations and the jerseys and whatever else, and just leave it at that.
And were they going to do a weekend, like the dunk contest?
As far as I know, all I've heard is the game.
The game.
And I think looking at last year, I felt like last year was one of the first All-Star games that people actually cared about. Because I mean, there were so many things. I mean, they had the I forget the exact name of the rule, but they had the target score in the fourth quarter. They had they were playing for the charities. They had the kids' charities in the stadium cheering them on. Like, those players actually gave a crap at the end of the game, and they were playing hard. And you're going to lose all of that given, all of COVID. You aren't going to have fans. You aren't going to have charities, in the stadium cheering you on. It's a lot of risk for minimal payoff. Nobody is really going to shed a tear if the All-Star game has to go away for a year. I mean, look at the Pro Bowl. They moved that entirely online and did a Madden tournament on that. And it barely registered a blip. I mean, everybody got why the Pro Bowl was canceled. They still got the honors. They still got the jersey. There's no reason why the All-Star game should be played right now, especially given all that's going on right now. I mean, the situation is not getting much better in the country. And to expose all of your star players to increase risk for something that in the grand scheme of things means nothing to your season as a whole, especially when you are struggling to get through a season. I mean, you have teams like the Sixers a couple weeks ago rolling out with 7 players basically and having to play. You don't need to take that risk if you don't absolutely have to. I think the game should not go forward this year. I think that LeBron and the Stars are in the right, especially because they'll be the ones going. And they aren't okay with this, but they'll go and they'll be exposed to. I mean, hopefully they won't be exposed to something, but worst case scenario they are. And then even if you don't get it, like Julia is saying, you're a close contact, you're stuck in the protocol for 2 weeks. It will just derail the season as a whole. I think that it's a bad idea to be playing this game. I think it should be postponed.
Yeah, I agree. And then it is the best players from every team. So if you're going to be out with your best player, depending on what team you are, that's going to be a huge hole going forward. And last year, I mean, they played with heavy hearts because of Kobe's death. And I did like the 24-point mark that you mentioned. That was pretty cool. They did actually play, they actually did go 100% towards the end there. But this year, I don't think it's a good call.
Yeah. All right, so that will do us here for the first episode of Season 3 of Flipping the Bird. Wanted to say thank you for everybody that stopped by, watched, and listened to us. And we will be seeing you all the next week. Have a good one.